but socially connecting through this virtual modality. Just excited to see everyone out there, all your lovely faces. And it's been a little while. We've got a lot of things happening. The Movement Disorder Society meeting. I was just actually traveling in Sweden, meeting some researchers and folks out there who are really just trying to do their best to improve the quality of life for people living with Parkinson's and their families. And so lots of exciting things happening, but wanted to kind of bring to you some local offerings. I, as you know, have a background in yoga teaching and mindfulness teaching. I've been really interested in some of these contemplative spaces to understand, what we can learn from these spaces and bring back to help our patients with Parkinson's and their caregivers. So as part of that journey, I think that I've done a number of yoga teacher trainings, and I worked with Jivana Heyman, who is the founder of Accessible Yoga, which is based in Santa Barbara, California. And he's just had this amazing sort of journey through, I think, yoga, originally teaching yoga in spaces, including Parkinson's patients, now teaching a lot of yoga teachers about bringing yoga and making it accessible to everyone on the planet. And when we define that, I mean, it's been pretty amazing going to some of the trainings and then keeping in touch with some of the folks that work with Jivana. He has inspired people to be teaching yoga in prisons, in all kinds of amazing migrant farm workers, Long Beach parks. I met all kinds of people who have really inspired me through their work, and we've been able to connect as a community. There's actually a conference that's coming up called the Accessible Yoga Conference that we will link here. So if people are interested, if there's any yoga teachers or students of yoga that are interested in taking a bit of a deeper dive to understand, who's teaching out there. And I was actually lucky enough to be able to participate in that conference as a speaker, and that's coming up in a couple of weeks. And then Jivan has also inspired us by writing a couple of books. He wrote a beautiful book called Accessible Yoga that I think came out a couple of years ago. And then just recently, Yoga Revolution, which I was just reading, which has just really been mind-blowing in terms of some of the thoughts about using yoga and the philosophy around yoga and helping everyone on the planet, through some ideas around social justice and just, really mind-opening. So urge you to look for those books. Accessible Yoga is already out. And then you can get the Yoga Revolution. I think you can pre-order it. We'll put the link in as well. I think it's coming out in mid-November. So excited for that. But without further ado, maybe Jivana, I'll let you maybe open the space because I've chatted a little bit, but we can bring everyone together through a little bit of a practice, and then we'll chat a little bit about yoga, and then we'll have a seated practice for those of you at home and or watching this later on your video. We'll have a practice after a little bit of a chat as well. So go ahead.
Okay.
Welcome.
Okay. Hi. Yeah, thanks, Indy. It's so great to be here. Thanks for having me. Nice to see everybody. I'm curious if any of you have experience with yoga. Maybe you could just say in the chat if you've done yoga before. I'd love to know just if you've done it maybe once or if you've been practicing for a long time. I'm just curious about that. Yeah, I thought we could start with a little centering practice, which is helpful for me. And I think it's really an important aspect of yoga is to spend a minute to just kind of turn inward and notice how you're feeling right now. So why don't we do that? So if you don't mind, maybe sit back a little bit while I ask you to type. So when you're done typing, sit back and get more comfortable in your chair, wherever you're seated. You're gonna have the eyes open or closed. Take a moment to notice, maybe doing a little body scan, notice how your body is feeling right now. So bring the awareness down to the feet and see if you can sense your feet without judging anything as good or bad, just noticing sensations there. And then try and move the awareness up the legs, up through the thighs and the hips and the pelvis and the abdomen, up into the chest. Bring the awareness to the hands. Again, sensing what's going on in your hands, whatever you feel there. Noticing any sensations in the arms, all the way up to the shoulders. And then the back of the body. You can sense the back of the body, the lower back, the middle back, and the upper back. Into the neck, all the way up into the face, Noticing the jaw, the mouth, nose, and the eyes, the whole head. And then notice the breath and see if your breath seems relaxed or if you're holding the breath. And it's okay, without judging, to see if you can allow the breath to move however it wants. And maybe take a moment to deepen the breath. See if you can inhale a little more fully. And exhale a little slower, long, slow exhale. So let's take a few that way, maybe 3 more breaths like that. Inhaling deeply. And then exhale, slow down that exhalation, making it long and slow. And as you do that, see if you can feel the body releasing a little bit, relaxing just a little bit. So after that 3rd exhale, slowly coming back. You can open the eyes if they were closed. Notice how that felt. That was pretty fast, but I'll tell you, just that process of focusing on different parts of the body is a really good yoga practice. You know, I think one of the things that people are most surprised by around yoga is that it's not just about stretching the body and doing complicated poses, you know? It's really about working with the mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jivana, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your journey. I know you started working, I think, in San Francisco, right? And some populations there. And then
Yeah.
maybe a little bit about sort of when you sort of thought about this concept of accessible yoga and how you know you define it.
Yeah, and I like seeing about your people's experience with yoga. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, so I was an AIDS activist back in the late 80s and early 90s. You know, I'm a gay man and my community was devastated by AIDS. And, you know, my best friend died of AIDS in 1995. I lost many, many friends, but that was really a turning point for me. In 1995 is when I'd been practicing yoga myself already for about 5 years, but I decided to become a teacher. And that's when I graduated teacher training. And so I started teaching yoga classes for people with HIV and AIDS in San Francisco. And then those classes expanded and I started welcoming in other people with different disabilities, and especially worked with the Dean Ornish program for people with heart disease, and also with the MS Society in Northern California. And I worked with the MS Society for many, many years, teaching yoga classes for people with MS in Oakland, Berkeley, and San Francisco. And I did that for about 20 years. And then, you know, out of those classes, accessible yoga was really born, and that it wasn't just about making yoga accessible, but I realized there was so much in the teacher training that I loved, because I was training teachers at that time. And I wanted my students with disabilities to become yoga teachers, basically. Like many of them had become really dedicated yoga practitioners and didn't feel like a teacher training was accessible to them. And so originally, accessible yoga started as an effort to train people with disabilities to become teachers themselves. And then it's expanded to include training all yoga teachers to make their classes accessible, which is really what we mostly do these days. You know, there's, I don't know, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of yoga teachers around the world. And many of them are trained in ways that are just not that accessible. And they're teaching classes that are quite exclusive. And I just don't think, I don't know, to me, it just doesn't seem right, because the heart of yoga is something that's so universal. These are universal teachings that everyone can benefit from. And so to me, it feels almost like an ethical, I don't know, or moral issue that these practices need to be made available to anyone who wants them, and they need to be accessible. So that's what I do, is I really just focus on basic skills for yoga teachers to make their teaching more welcoming and inclusive. And like you said, we run conferences that really are about professional education for yoga teachers. And I work a lot with teachers in terms of like just kind of inspiring them and trying to convince them that yoga should be accessible, and also write about it, as you mentioned. I think my first book, Accessible Yoga, would be useful for people who are starting out. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the sort of concept of accessibility has just been so important. I think in like with the pandemic, I think we've realized how many spaces people have not been well served in. I think we've also realized how, many of us may not feel as comfortable in certain spaces as others. So I've really been thinking about this when trying to help our Parkinson's patients with, designing things that they can try to do every day for themselves, and just meeting them kind of where they are. Maybe you could tell us a little bit, Jivana, you were talking about the Dean Ornish program, and I know that a lot of that program has something to do with sort of the sense that patients can, pick things for themselves every day, lifestyle choices. There's also a sense of kind of this community of people supporting them and that sort of aspect of health. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your concepts just from working in that population, and maybe that, our patients and caregivers can hear a little bit about, what you took away from that.
Yeah, that was very inspiring to me because I started working for Dean Ornish early on in my teaching career. And so I was really just trying to understand how to make yoga accessible for the communities I wanted to share it with. And he was doing such amazing work. I mean, people who don't know Dean Ornish, he basically proved that yoga and a yoga lifestyle could reverse heart disease. And that was, 25 years ago. It was like really early compared to the kind of yoga therapy research that's happening now. And he's also from the same tradition that I'm trained in, integral yoga. So I got the job because of that. I was basically teaching yoga for his program. And what I was so interested in is the way that he added in all these additional components. So what he did is he asked participants in his program to look at all different aspects of their lives. So his work is famous for the diet. He was really interested in a low-fat vegetarian diet. And that was important, but it's interesting because his research showed that what was most important was actually the stress reduction, which was actually the yoga and meditation practice that we taught everyone, and the social network, the social support. And what he did was he ran support groups, but they were specific, and then they were kind of positive support groups where people were asked to follow certain guidelines. We were asked to share and to not give advice. So it was really a very very open space to really just be able to talk freely and hear other people's experiences and not feel like someone's going to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
It was really beautiful. And and they also had exercise. So people would walk about, I think, half an hour a day, something like that. I mean, there was some exercise component, and stopping smoking actually was a big thing for heart disease. So, but in the end, it was the yoga practice and the group support that were the most important components of this work. And I feel like that community building piece really inspired me. So when I started teaching, I was spending more time doing that. We would meet early, like the classes I taught were often 2 hours. We would sit and talk for about half an hour or 45 minutes about whatever people wanted to, or about yoga teachings. And I would often share about some yoga philosophy that people were usually not familiar with, but often excited about. Like in the yoga, we have the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali and the Bhagavad Gita, and these two texts are available for us to read directly. There are like thousands of translations, and some are very accessible. And that's kind of what my second book is about, is like how we can really access those teachings ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important. We're going to get to a practice. I know people in the chat are excited to do some practice, but I wanted to kind of put this in context because I think yoga is not just like any exercise. You can get on a treadmill and turn it on and do something for 30 minutes. But I think that my hope from the work that I've been doing and trying to convince doctors and the healthcare community that this stuff matters has been really around, so the social connection piece is huge. So, I think we all see that, and the yoga community is important for us as yoga teachers, but having people come in a space and being together, even if it's a virtual space, is important. So I urge, our listeners to try to connect in that way, because I think, doing this through a video by yourself probably isn't as good as probably getting together in what we call a sangha, which is sort of this community. But there's also this philosophy, which is really interesting, and you've teased that out really well in your new book. And then there's these sort of concepts. You did a beautiful little meditation, kind of like a guided sort of body scan, a little bit of focus on the breath. the breath work, which is important in yoga, and hopefully we'll get to that in the practice that we're going to share. And then also the asana practice, which is sort of the movements, the poses, and I think that makes a lot of sense from the physical side of Parkinson's. One thing that I wanted to also share with the audience is, how important I think a lot of the non-motor aspects are in Parkinson's disease, and anxiety, depression, and apathy are huge. And I know that you write about your own struggles a little bit with this, Jivana. So maybe before we start our practice, we can just maybe talk a little bit about maybe anxiety specifically as a symptom that you may have experienced yourself, and what you think. And then maybe in the practice that we do, and we'll sort of go back and forth. I think we'll have a seated practice for a while. You'll guide us through that, and then we can, chat again. But this is sort of meant to not just be a practice, but to really bring out sort of, I think, your knowledge base as well, and share a little bit about why Parkinson's patients may benefit from this as well.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, like I was saying with Dean Ornish, I'll just go into that what's so interesting about yoga and how it's different than exercise is that it's so good at stress reduction and regulating our nervous system. And actually probably one of the most beneficial practices we have in terms of directly accessing the nervous system, because yoga works, I mean, you probably could explain much better than me, I'm sure you can, but it gives us access to part of our nervous system that we normally don't know how to work with, through the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic nervous system and all that. But basically what it does is it really allows us to stimulate that relaxation. And I know for myself, it's been really essential. As you mentioned, I have a history of anxiety, and I actually had a really bad anxiety attack 4 years ago. There were just all these things happen in my life at the same time, which I don't need to go into, but it was a rough moment for me. And even though I'd been practicing for so long, I mean, I'm still human, and it's like, I still struggle, and it just kind of hit me out of the blue. And it made me realize that I need to really rethink the way I'm practicing. And part of it was focusing in on what I want to create and achieve in my practice, rather than just like looking the right way. Because I think as a teacher, there's a lot of stress on us, like to perform yoga. And I think of yoga as this incredible, I don't know, buffet of practices that are available to us, including different styles, different techniques. You mentioned breathing practice, asana, which is the physical poses, meditation, the ethical guidelines, and the other teachings. There's so much there. Karma yoga, service, like actually feeling that my life has meaning because I'm able to even like send positive thoughts to someone or do something kind for somebody else, like not always thinking about myself. There's so many things that yoga teaches us that I think help us regulate our nervous system. And so what I've tried to do in the last few years is really rethink my practice personally, and also not push myself so hard, like basically be more gentle and try to find things that I enjoy. And so my practice is changing all the time, but I would just say that I think anxiety and other like emotional issues often are connected to the nervous system too, right? Like just feeling really stressed out. Do you know what I mean? You can explain it probably better.
Yeah.
You're the doctor.
I think anxiety is very common in general, but our patients with Parkinson's, many of them suffer from this, 40% of patients at least, and caregivers as well. And the pandemic has been very, very hard on people from that perspective. So I've definitely been leaning on some of my breathing practices and those sorts of things more. So yes, and the autonomic nervous system is sort of that nervous system that's affected in Parkinson's, and I think yoga and the mind-body practices really can tap into. So I'm excited to share some. So maybe without further ado, since some people are eager to do some practice, we can maybe start the seated practice maybe a little bit, and we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, so I'm going to step back and onto my mat. I have a chair there. And so I'd ask people to find a really steady chair if possible. And I'll show you, maybe I won't use many other props today, but I'll show you what I have. So I'm going to lower this so you can see. So I have my chair on a mat, but if you don't have a yoga mat, just make sure that your chair is secure, that it's not going to move around very much. It could be back against a wall. Here, maybe a little more. Or just very sturdy. And I know it sounds strange, but you really have to make sure that you're not going to fall out of your chair. It's an issue in chair yoga for sure. I also have a blanket on the seat of my chair because my legs are long, so that makes me more comfortable. If possible, you want to try and have knees and hips about level, or you could have the hips a little higher. If your legs are shorter, you could put a blanket under your feet. And again, that helps to make that knees a little more level with your hips. So spend a moment and try and get comfortable in your chair. Also notice if you're sitting forward in the chair or back. And so you're welcome to sit all the way back if you want to have that back support. But if you don't need the back support, then see if you can come forward, engage your back muscles and sit up tall. Also, you could have the feet a little further out than the knees. And what that does, it creates a more stable base. You can also have the legs a little wider than hip width apart so that we're really stable in the chair. All right, and then once you're stable, you're gonna work on kind of noticing the body here, sitting up nice and tall. Again, the eyes can be open or closed. Your arms and the hands can be resting on the knees or in the lap. Take a moment to turn your awareness inward again, like we did in the beginning. Maybe we could work on the breath a little bit more. So see if you can become aware of your breath. And see if you can, what we'll do is we'll make a sighing sound on the exhale. So you're gonna inhale deeply, and we're gonna exhale with a sigh, like an ah, like that. Okay, let's do it together. So inhale, deep breath. Exhale, ah. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale deeply. Ah. Long and slow. Make it as long as you can, that exhalation. So last time, inhale deeply. Ah. And notice if you can sense a change in the body right away just from that short practice of 3 long exhales and the sound. That's a practice that's really good for working with the parasympathetic nervous system, actually, that Indu was talking about. All right, now we'll do some warm-ups for the body. So let's become aware of the shoulders. So if you can squeeze the shoulders up towards the ears, inhale. And then as you exhale, release. Actually, we can sigh here again. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale, squeeze. And exhale. Again, inhale, squeeze. Great. And then with the shoulders, let's make circles. So we're going to squeeze them up again and then bring them back and then down and forward. So inhale, up and back. Exhale, down and forward. One more time. Inhale, up and back. And exhale, down and forward. And we'll go in the opposite direction now. Bring the shoulders back, up, forward, and down. Okay, so making a circle. Forward, down, back, up. One more time. And then release the shoulders and relax. Notice how you're feeling. And let's do an arm movement. This will be good for the shoulders as well. So if you can bring the arms out to the side with the palms facing up. And what we want to do is see if you can use the breath to move the arms. So as you inhale, you're going to feel the arms lifting up towards the ceiling, just as high as they comfortably go on the in-breath. And then turn the palms down, and on the exhale, feel them floating down. But what's important here is that we coordinate the breath and the movement. So see if you can do that with your breath. The inhalation is lifting, and the exhalation lowering. You can go at your own pace. We'll do one more of those. So inhale, lifting, and exhale, lowering. And that kind of a movement where you coordinate the breath and the movement in the body is really great for bringing the awareness inside, bringing the focus of the mind, really engaging the mind in practice. Let's do some hip circles. So if it's comfortable, you're gonna make a circle with the right knee. Now what I'm gonna do is put my right hand on my knee, raise it up, and then help my leg move with my hand. So I'm gonna rotate my leg in a big circle, using the hand to help move the leg. And I'm going to use the breath too. So inhaling up, exhaling down. One more time, and then the opposite direction. So making a circle with your knee, rotating that leg, the thigh bone, right in the hip joint, which is a good warm up for the hip. Okay, and then release that side. And the other side, make a big circle. Again, you can use the hand to help. So I'm kind of using my hand to assist the movement. I could use both hands if I wanted to make a big circle with the knees, with the knee. And then the opposite direction. All right, and then release that side. Let's do a side stretch. So there's a few different ways to do this. You can take your right hand and bring it across the body and place it on your left thigh and hold there. Hold the leg pretty tightly. And then take the left arm, the other arm, inhale and stretch it straight up. Okay, so lengthen the left side of the body, and then we're going to bend to the right. Don't have to go very far. Don't fall out of the chair face. So you feel a stretch along the whole left side of the body, and you can use the hand to hold you from kind of falling over. And you can even rotate slightly where the left shoulder moves back, the right shoulder forward. The neck is neutral, breath relaxed. Take one more breath here. And then as you exhale, slowly lower the arm back down. We'll do the other side. So left hand on the right thigh. Inhale, stretch the right arm up. And then exhale, bend to the left. And again, there's a slight rotation. The right shoulder moves back, left shoulder forward. Take a few breaths here. If it's not comfortable to have the arm overhead, you can do this with a bent arm. You can do it with the arm lower. Focus on lifting the shoulder. It's important that you find a way to practice that's comfortable for your body. Okay, coming out, like I mentioned before. So what's really important is not that you do these poses a particular way, but that you feel comfortable and safe, like you're not going to hurt yourself. So in a way, what's more important is what's happening on that nervous system level, where you feel like you're comfortable, the breath is flowing all the time, you're not straining. So I'm going to give you a challenging pose, and that's why I'm saying, like, let's make sure that we're not straining when we're doing this. This is going to be a strengthening pose, like a boat variation, to strengthen the abdominal muscles. So what I want you to do is sitting forward in the chair, take hold of the right thigh with the hands, and then inhale, lengthen the spine and begin to lean back. Engage your abdominal muscles as you lean back, a nice long back. And then I'm going to lift my right foot up and extend it out in front. And holding the leg there. Notice how that feels. You can feel that in your abdominal muscles. If it's comfortable, you can release the hands. But again, make sure you're not straining. So that's a good challenge for you, is to say, is this comfortable for me? Could I breathe and talk while I'm doing this? You know, that's the key. You can always breathe and talk comfortably. Okay, release that side. Do the other side. Sitting up again. Take hold of the left thigh. Nice tall spine. Inhale. Lean back, extend the left foot, and you can hold it there or release the hands. Breathing, so you're breathing, not holding the breath. Notice your lower back, make sure that it's comfortable as well. Spine is long. And then exhale, release the leg, sitting forward again. Nice one. Let's try doing a Sun Salutations. This is a series of movements that flow together. So you can join with me, bring the palms together at the chest, again, sitting nice and tall towards the front of the chair. Exhale. Inhale, extend the arms out and then up as high as you comfortably can. They can come out front or all the way up overhead. And then exhale, bring the hands to the knees and then hinge forward at the hips, a nice long back. And then if it's comfortable and safe for you, you can lower the head And release the arms down or just stay up here. So you can decide. And then coming back up, inhale, sit up, take hold of the right leg, bring it in, hugging that right thigh in towards the belly. Exhale, release the leg, hands on the knees. We'll do a cat stretch, which means we round the back and lower the head. And then inhale, cow, the belly comes forward, chest lifts, chin lifts, shoulders move back, and the arms come back. Exhale, cat stretch. So I'm going to slide the hands down the legs, rounding the back and lowering the head. Let's do that again. So cow, belly forward, inhale, chest forward, chin lifts, arms come back. Exhale, cat, stretch the hands down, past the knees, the head lowers, the back rounds. Exhale, and then bring the back to neutral. Take hold of the left leg, hugging it in. Squeeze. And exhale, release. Hands on the knees, hinging forward and back down. That's comfortable for your neck. And then coming back up. Sitting up nice and tall, arms out and up. And exhale, palms together. We can do that one again. It's a lot of movement, so it can feel complicated at first, but I think once you get the pattern going, it'll be easier for you. And you can go slower, of course. In the end, you want to follow your own breath, if that's possible. So we exhale here. Inhale, stretch the arms out and up. Exhale, hinging forward and down. Inhale, sitting back up. Take hold of the right leg. Squeeze. Exhale, release the leg. And we do a cat, rounding the back. Inhale, cow, move. Belly and chest forward, chin up. Exhale, cat, meow. Again, let's do cow, belly and chest forward, chin lifts, elbows back. And then cat, stretch the hands down, round the back. Come back to neutral, left leg. Squeeze the leg up, inhale here. Exhale, release the leg and hinge forward and down. And then coming up on an inhale, stretch the arms out and up. And exhale, palms together. And then release the hands. Notice how you're feeling. Let's try a twist pose. I'm going to do a little unusual one. It's a more dynamic pose. We're going to bring the legs wide apart, sitting nice and tall. You're going to bring the arms out at the sides. So you can have them anywhere that's comfortable, kind of like, we call this cactus arms, or like a goalpost. It could be lower if that works for you, whatever you like, right? Just so that their arms are out. If possible, bring the elbows back slightly so the chest is expanded, spine is long. Inhale, lengthen the spine, and exhale, twist to the right. So feel the whole body turn to the right. Right arm goes back. You can look right. Good. And then inhale back to center. Then exhale to the left. And inhale back to center. And keep going that way. So we exhale to one side. Inhale back to center. Exhale to the other side. Inhale back to center. We'll do a few more. Going at your own pace. Okay, and we've done the last one to the left side. You can come back to center, release the arms. Notice how you feel. It might make you a little hotter. Hopefully not too much. Let's do now a more calming pose. You can do, I would call this a variation of child's pose. You could do this with props, like if you had another chair in front of you, but I'm going to try another way just with arms. So I'm going to lean forward and place my elbows right on my knees or thighs. And then interlace the fingers and extend the thumbs. And then rest the head right on the thumbs so that the thumbs are coming into kind of the inner eyebrow towards the bridge of the nose. And see if I can let the head rest down here, feeling a gentle pressure. You could even move the thumbs out further along the eyebrows and put some pressure there. kind of right in the middle of your eyebrows. There's a pressure point there. So you're going to take a breath, and when you feel a gentle pressure, see if you can exhale and let it relax. Take another breath here, relaxing the back of the neck and the shoulders. And then coming up slowly, begin to lift the head. And then you can sit back in the chair and rest for a moment. And if you like, you can I like to put like something on my lap for this. This is a relaxation we'll do. You can have like a pillow or a bolster or a blanket on your lap. Something a little weight can help to feel more grounded. But if you don't have one, that's fine. You can do this without. Again, leaning all the way back in the chair so that you're comfortable. You could also use other props. If it's cold where you are or cooler, you could cover yourself. It's quite warm here today. You could cover yourself with a blanket or something. We'll do what's called Shavasana. This is relaxation. And I want to do a little differently. We're going to start with a little stretch. So I'm going to start by stretching out the right leg. Inhale, stretch it away from you. And exhale, release. And the left leg, inhale, stretch it away. And exhale, release. The right arm, I'm going to stretch it out, fingers wide apart. Inhale, stretch it away. Exhale, release. The left arm, inhale, stretch it away, fingers wide apart. And exhale, release. Inhale, take a deep breath in, filling the belly. So you can feel the belly expand as you inhale. And open the mouth, exhale wide. Let's try that again. Inhale deeply, this time filling the belly and the chest. Exhale. Then squeeze the shoulders up to the ears and slide them away from the ears down towards the feet. You can turn the head gently from side to side, giving the neck a little movement, and then come back to center. And then we can work on the face. Maybe we could do we're going to make a small and then a big face. So let's start with a small face. Inhale, make the face as small as you can. And then exhale, make a big face. Make it as big as you can. Again, inhale, small face. Exhale, big face. And then move the jaw. And open and close the mouth. And then relax the face. Notice how it's feeling. Make sure the body is comfortable. And if it's comfortable for you, you could have the eyes closed here. And I'd like you to scan the body one more time, like we did earlier. We bring the awareness down to the feet. And now I want you to notice if there's anything different, if the body's changed at all during this short yoga session. Noticing any differences between now and when we started. Noticing the feet and the legs, the hips, the belly and the chest, the hands and the arms, back of the body. Noticing the spine, the back of the neck, the throat, all the way up into the head. Noticing the face, the sides of the head, back of the head, and the top of the head. And then bring the awareness to the breath. See if you can allow the breath to relax. Let it move however it wants. And then notice what's going on in the mind. See if you can step back and observe any thoughts, any feelings or emotions, any images that arise. See if you can notice what's going on with the mind, witnessing the mind itself. Just spend another moment here enjoying however you're feeling. Hopefully it's comfortable and relaxing. And now take a breath, deep breath, and a long exhale. You can wake the body a little bit and sit up a little bit taller. And you can take the pillow away if you want. And let's end with a short breathing practice and meditation. So again, you can sit up a little taller if that's comfortable for you. I wanted to teach you alternate nostril breathing. This is a breathing practice that's really helpful at calming the nervous system. And there's so many different ways to do it. So I'm going to show you a few different variations. The traditional form is where you take the right hand and you make a fist, a gentle fist on the right hand, and you extend the last two fingers and the thumb. I don't know if you can see that. So you would have the first two fingers bent in towards the palm, and you bring the hand to the face. And so kind of the nose is between your ring finger and your thumb. Now, if that's not comfortable for you, you can actually just do it with any fingers you want. You can use your index finger and thumb. You could use your left hand instead, or you can use your index finger of both hands. There's many different ways, but I'm going to show you. So whatever hand position works for you, I'll teach you the technique. So what you do is you're going to close the right nostril and exhale slowly from the left nostril. And again, if you feel short of breath or uncomfortable at any time, just stop practicing or go at your own pace. Then inhale left and switch nostrils. Close the left nostril, exhale right. And inhale right. And switch again. Exhale left. Inhale left. And switch. So the pattern is simply exhale, inhale, switch sides. So just see if you can find a pace that's comfortable for your breath. We're using that same pattern of exhale, inhale, switch sides. And then if you're comfortable with this, you can slow the breath a little bit more. So you can work on slowing the exhalation in particular. But without straining, okay? Without straining or feeling short of breath. Like I said, if you do feel that way, you can just stop. You can even just imagine this in your mind. The same pattern works if you think of it. Exhale, inhale, switch sides. Okay, last exhale from the right nostril. And then release the hand. I thought we could do a breath meditation. So for the breath meditation, you don't need to change the breath at all. What I'd like you to do is really become sensitive to it and notice the breath moving in a relaxed way on its own. You can sense first the breath on a physical level. So feeling the breath moving in through the nostrils, hopefully breathing in through the nose. Slightly cooler, coming into the nose, down the throat, filling the lungs, and then leaving the lungs slightly warmer up through the throat, out the nose. You can also sense the breath in a more energetic way. Feel the breath filling you, bringing fresh energy, oxygen into your system on the inhale. And with the exhale, feel that you're letting go of all you don't need, right? Letting go of carbon dioxide, any toxins. You can experience that, or energetically, you can feel that you're filling the body with fresh energy on the inhale and relaxing and sending it through the body as you exhale. One other practice you can use when following the breath is to imagine the breath moving along the spine. So you could feel the inhale moving down the spine. Just imagine the breath as light or energy moving down the spine. And then on the exhale, feel it moving back up the spine. So on the inhale, the breath moves down the spine. And as you exhale, imagine the breath or feel it moving back up the spine. So let's sit for one more minute, choosing any breath meditation that you enjoy. Simply observing the breath is fine. When the mind wanders to something else, see if you can notice that and come back to the breath. And now take a deep inhale and long exhale. You can bring the palms together at the chest, and you can bow your head to yourself. See if you can acknowledge that whatever you found during that practice, whether it's a sense of peace or energizing, whatever it is, see if you can just acknowledge that and thank yourself for spending these few minutes taking care of yourself. If you want, you could even think of somebody in your life that you want to send some positive energy to and picture them in your mind. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really beautiful. For maybe the folks at home that hadn't had a practice in that before, maybe people could type in the chat, what they felt. I am always amazed at how quickly breath work can get me into a relaxed space. I think it's like less than 5 minutes and I just feel transformed often. And then I think using the body, and grounding also, you forget kind of how much in your head you get. So just sometimes just, putting attention in the feet or with the bolster in my lap, I just felt sort of a different sort of sensation of something, that was, kind of grounding, and kind of just very simple practices that quickly can take you, I think, into a state of from anxiety maybe, or feeling wound up, to being much more relaxed, and possibly even, helping with sleep. I felt like I could have fallen asleep through that practice pretty quickly.
You probably need some sleep, yeah.
Yeah. So I think, these are pretty transformational practices. One thing, Jivana, that our patients also struggle with sometimes, and maybe you could comment maybe from a yoga space on this, is apathy. So there's a sense that people feel kind of low energy, sometimes a lack of motivation to try things, or get their day going, things like that. Are there things in a yoga practice that can kind of help with that? I know at some point in the sort of flow that we just did, even though it was just seated, you were sort of increasing, I think, heat through movement, and that seemed to kind of get the heart rate going and maybe more energy going. And then we kind of cooled it off with some breath work. So I don't know, maybe are there a couple of simple ideas that you have maybe to help with apathy?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually. I think what yoga can do is help balance. So I think no matter how you're feeling, it could bring you back to more of a feeling of balance. So I think if you feel lethargic or depressed, I think it could lift you a little bit, and you might want to find practices that are more energizing. So yeah, like some of the things we did the strengthening practices, the ones that are more that have faster movement, honestly, like Sun Salutation, more of a flow. Working on, there's some breathing practices you could do for that, actually, like quick breathing. I think that could work, but it's a really good point, actually. And I probably want to think about it more, because I think it also depends. It depends on what's going on. If it's really physical because of pain, you know what I mean? Or if it's emotional, like depression. Um, yeah, and it can be really challenging. Like chair yoga, people like, I think my real mission in life is to make people realize that chair yoga is really effective, because I think many people think that practicing a chair is not real yoga. And it can be 100% real yoga. I think you can get all the benefits of yoga in the chair, including strengthening, for sure. So yeah, I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what I also feel like with, especially with twists, which I think I
Oh
definitely
yeah.
love, is that having your lower body stabilized in a chair makes the sort of twisting a little deeper in a way that I think is kind of interesting.
You have to be careful with that, actually, because that's the thing. So the thing about chair yoga is your lower body is, your pelvis is stable. Unlike on the mat, if you're lying down or standing, this is like you're rooting down through the pelvis. So sometimes in a twist, it can be good to move the pelvis, to actually consciously let the hips move too. And so some of the poses that are done in yoga, some of the more complicated twists that you would do, or like warriors and things like that, triangle, if you do them in a chair, I think it can be really good to just be very sensitive to your pelvis and your lower back and your SI joint. I guess I'm saying there's a little bit of a danger, actually, in working on the chair,
Yeah.
that you twist too much.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's interesting how effective it is. I think even these sort of modifications. I think one of the beauties that I feel yoga has, and you were showing some of the props back there, is that you can really modify things. So ordinarily, you did a Sun Salutation series, which is a standing series of poses that can be very, very sort of cardiac kind of heart rate increase, sort of in the right flow. But you can also, get some of the benefits of that just in the chair. And even, I think some of the practices that you had, we were laughing about this as a group, because, in Jivana's trainings, they give us group practice. We all break into small groups, and then he gives us these things like teach chair yoga to a group of people in wheelchairs in this sort of setting, and you have no props, or you have only this prop. And so we had to get pretty creative, with some of the things we were trying to do. And you even have taught, I know that one of the things that you told me about was sort of a patient that you had helped to, I think, I can't remember if they had ALS or a pretty high spinal cord transection, but maybe you could just speak about, even if you have not a lot of movement or flexibility, what are the types of maybe breathing or some energetic practices that anybody can still access some of this stuff. Maybe we could spend the last couple of minutes, because we only have about 5 minutes left. And there was a question before I forget in the chat about yoga teachers who have Parkinson's. Richard Rosen is one of them. I had him on this series, so maybe look in YouTube under the PMD Alliance Holistic series for his work, and he's amazing as a teacher, and I think other people have written in the chat as well. But yeah, maybe you could just speak.
Yeah, and also we have the Accessible Yoga community on Facebook is a community of over 10,000 yoga teachers, and so you could always post in there. It's a free group, anyone can join, and you can ask if anyone knows a teacher like that. Because I think I love that question about finding a teacher with PD themselves. I think that'd be really great. But I like your other question too, because I think it's important to remember that yoga, even though we mostly focus on the physical movements, is actually really a mental practice. It's a spiritual practice of working on calming the mind, connecting with yourself, whatever you call that. You can call that self, God, divine essence, consciousness. Like, it doesn't have to be religious, but it's a very full and deep practice, and very subtle. And what's beautiful about it is that the more subtle practices are actually more effective and more powerful. And so that's why it's naturally accessible, because the meditation, the breathing practice is actually the most important part. And the body, the physical part's good too, and you can use the body, and it's fun to do movement. But like you mentioned, I recently worked with a disability activist, Addie Barkan, who has ALS, and he happens to live here in Santa Barbara, and he's incredible. People might want to look him up. He has a new documentary about his work. I mean, he's really speaking out for all people with disabilities. But he has extreme limitations. He's on a ventilator. And so it was really a challenge to think of like practices that could be accessible to him. He couldn't actually control his breath. So for him, it was really more about meditation, body scan, relaxation, and thinking of things that really actually are still the heart of yoga, like really share the essence of the practice. Because in the end, like I said, it is about working with your mind. So like I said, when we're doing alternate nostril breathing, if someone doesn't have the control of their hand or is not comfortable to do that, you can do it with your mind, and it's considered more advanced, but it's really powerful to just imagine that you're breathing out and in from one nostril at a time. Also, if you're in public and you don't want to be seen doing that, that works well too. But it's actually more powerful if you can get your mind to focus on it than just the physical action, if that makes
Absolutely.
sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's why we call them, I guess, the mind body practices. But I've been really excited about this whole space, and I think I've told you, Jivana, and some of the other folks, that I'm doing this fellowship that has to do with mindfulness and yoga as well, and really trying to understand, you know, how to help our patients living with Parkinson's and their caregivers, and, you know, as a community, all of us who care about patients and our healthcare providers and givers ourselves can get so much sometimes burnout in this space. And so how we can replenish our stores, and a lot of it is tremendously mental. And so, you know, when we have, you know, sometimes these sessions, I really want our patients to understand, and their loved ones to understand kind of the principles behind, you know, why yoga makes so much sense. It's not just, you know, we could all sit around and do this, like, you know, Zumba class or whatever all together, I guess, and, you know, or anything, you know, insert any word there. But it's really the sort of philosophy, the sort of group practice, the sort of sense that you have a teacher that's inspiring you and taking you down this path, and really the sort of breath work, the mind, you know, sort of meditation practices. And I think, you know, the movements are really one aspect of it. And I think, unfortunately, in you know, our society, we've sort of over commercialized sort of the sense of the movements, and really thinking about, you know, why are we not standing up and doing triangle and headstands? Well, you know, I think the essence that I really hope to bring to our group of patients, you know, is really this other sort of more spiritual aspect, which I'm so thrilled that you were able to share with us.
Yeah, can I say one last thing? I think to connect some of the pieces that we've talked about, which is that in the end, it has to do with, I think, having a relationship with yourself, you know, like an inner relationship, and to really reflect on what kind of the way you talk to yourself and speak to yourself inside, and finding practices and activities that support that more of a positive thing. And that's what I'm working on in my life, is like, you know, that voice in your head that's talking and maybe is self-critical, and really trying to kind of become more in alignment with myself, so that I'm speaking to myself kindly, and then therefore also acting that way in the world. Like, that's, I think, important. And especially as a caregiver, I think for caregivers to really look at that, like, what's their internal dialogue and how can they use practices to help support themselves, you know, to feel energized and not get drained.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jivana, for spending this hour. It kind of flew by. You know, we could talk for hours. I mean, around all your books and all the work and all the amazing work that you've inspired, you know, in the group of accessible yogis out there. So we've linked some of the stuff, and hopefully people can, you know, sort of, this is just a taste. People can get a little bit more, you know, sort of a deeper dive if they want to do the conference, or check out some of your videos, or the books that we talked about as well. And yeah, and I think that your most recent book has some links to practices, right? If you buy it from a certain link. So I think that that's amazing as well. But thank you for your work and all your teaching and amazing inspiration. And I look forward to continuing to work with you on how we can make things better.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And usually we do a goodbye wave of gratitude, but what is the namaste, I see the light in you? Why don't we do that instead? How does that go?
I mean, that Indu already did it. Just simply placing your hands together. I mean, that's all we need to do. You can bow to yourself and bow to somebody else. That's very nice.
Well, we bow to you. Thank you both
Thank
for
you.
sharing your time and this amazing talk. It was lovely to spend this hour together. And thank you
Thank
to all of you out there who joined.
Bye, guys. Be
Bye
well.
now.
you. Thank you.